welcome back. Another session with my main man, Adil here. A brief introduction for my guy Adil. If you don't know, you should know by now. The greatest or the legendary giver, the man that's dominated that position for many years and kept a lot of QBs in check, Adil himself. Welcome to the CFL podcast, my man.
Thank you for having me, Usman. For a lot of people that don't know me, I've been here since day one with CFL. Kind of stepped in year two with Akib, helping him out, him and Farouk really, and just contributing wherever I need to. Most of the people probably don't see me, in the front gate of things, but behind closed doors. I'm just happy to help and make this a better league for everyone.
Listen, you may not know this, but like I think I joined this league primarily because I met you and Adil and your brother Akib. For anyone that doesn't know, Adil is Missionary's brother, the better looking version, of course. He's got all his hair, so you get that. But yeah, I met you and Akib over in Queens, and then you guys introduced me to the league, and that's how it came about. So this is long overdue, man. Welcome. I'm happy to have you on. I know you've got a lot of insight on what the league is from like a player perspective as well. So let's get right into it, man. It's we missed last week or two, but we're back on, and there's a lot that happened. A lot of teams developing, a lot of teams catching rhythm, and then some teams struggling and trying to find a way. So we do have playoffs that are just not too far ahead. But before we get to what's forecasted situation looks like, let's talk a little bit about what's been going down. Let's start with our retro division. I want to kind of ask you about these power rankings that just came out not too long ago, and where the team stands. So currently, just based on wins and loss situation, we know that every other, led by Shaq, is on the top of the rankings in terms of wins and losses, followed by unexpectedly the Interceptors have taken one loss. I did not think they were going to take a loss. I thought they were going to win out the division with the talent that they had in Ezra, but for some situation, I guess he didn't make the game last week, so they took a loss. Then we have the Niners at 2-2. We got the Bots led by you and the crew at 1-3, and then Iman at 1-4. Let's talk a little bit about this. Give me your take on, let's start with every other. They're
Yeah.
on the they're ranked number one on this power listing that's
Yeah, I
come
mean,
out.
for the people that don't know, Retro's been around for I think this is the third year. This year we have five teams, and every other is led by Shaq and his boys. They got a very young squad, filled with a lot of high energy athletes, and they're just a very good team. They have experience playing together for a few years, and I think they're clearly the favorite. Shaq's already won one championship within the retro division, so he understands how it works. He understands how to play, and with his guy Tauheed, they form a very dynamic duo. I think their offense is going to be one of those that's very tough to stop. You know, some of the guys in retro are a little bit older in age; they can't keep up. But I think the question is, can they play defense consistently, and can they keep their heads together? Because they're young, some of them have a little bit of an ego, but they have a lot of talent. So it's, can they keep things together, and can they play consistent defense and make the stops that they need to?
So are we
So in
ready
my
to hand
mind, they're the
are we ready
favorite.
to hand over this division to them yet, or do you think the Interceptors are going to give them a run for their money? Have they played yet?
I believe they did beat the Interceptors, if I'm
Oh
not
wow.
wrong.
The
Uh,
the only loss
but
the Interceptors
you know
got
they've
is from
they've
them.
played a few yeah, so they've played a lot of close games though. The bots took them down to the wire. I think they definitely have the talent to win it, but it just depends on, can they keep those emotions in check, and can they finish off those games. It's always about those last few plays, and I think with the younger guys, it's about composure.
I got you, man. Yeah, no, Shaq is definitely throwing the ball well. He moves well in the pocket, and he's got a good connection with some of his guys. So definitely, if he's playing with the same or a similar squad that he plays with in the Elite Division, and he's playing in the Retro Division with some of the at least some of those guys, I'm gonna have to deliver this bad news to Ezra and Farouk. But I think you guys might have a tough time getting through this team. At the beginning of the season, it looked like this division was all yours, and you were just going to cruise through it all the way to the end and raise the championship trophy. But with Shaq and company playing the way that they are, I think you guys are up for a ride. And that leads
Yeah,
us
look,
right into where the Interceptors stand, led by Adam and Ezra. Obviously, I think they have Sal on the team as well, so they have a pretty good roster.
yeah, you can't forget about Greg. Um, Farouk has been tooting his own horns about scoring touchdowns almost every week. His streak just ended, by the way. So he's probably not too happy about that. But they've got a very talented squad. They have height. They have a couple of very tall guys, and I think they have that advantage. But also, you can't forget about Ezra. I think he played in season one and season two within the elite division. He's a guy that's a very good arm talent. He knows where to put the ball, and when he has guys that are a little bit more gifted in size, I think that really helps his case. This team is not going to blow you away with their speed, not going to blow you away with their defense, but like Ezra said, they're going to try to put up 40 points every week, and he's been pretty close, every single game.
Interesting. So how do you feel about this ranking? Do you think they belong in the number one spot?
I think because every other has no losses, I think they should keep that first spot, but
Yeah,
the
it's fine. If
Interceptor,
if you ignore the wins and losses for a second and you just look at power rankings
yeah,
from a team that's going to go out and you're most likely to win a game, is it you got your money on Interceptors or is it going to be every other? Because right now, um,
yeah, full
Tito
strength, I'll
Jones
take
or
it.
whoever put this power rankings together, it's up on the website, has every other ranked number one and then Interceptors at number two. Now,
Yeah,
now one thing I'll point out. Every other's average points have been 26 points, and the Interceptors' average points have been 34. So the Interceptors do go out and score more points, at least on an average weekly basis. So how do you feel about the one and two here? Do you think the Interceptors got snubbed here for the number one spot?
I don't think they got snubbed just because they lost the game. But if I had to pick from between those two teams, I take Interceptors in a championship game or a playoff game. I'd pick them.
It's the veteran. You think they'll keep the composure, huh? And we're definitely
I
spending
think
a
they
lot of time on this, right? So I do want to get into the other ones too. So let's go.
sure.
We know who one and two are, questionably, right? So the website's got them listed. Um, the Interceptors at number two. I'm gonna go ahead and roll with you, and I'm gonna say that because the Interceptors have been scoring a lot of points, I'm gonna move them up in my personal power ranking to the number one spot, and I'm gonna move Shaq and company, which I'm probably not gonna, win any votes for from Shaq and his crew. I'm gonna move them down to a two spot. But let's move on to the rest of it, right? So we got some other teams that are having a good time, playing some good games. We got the Niners and we got the Bots, right? So talk to me about these two teams. Um, you know, let's talk about the Niners first. They seem to be coming up. They seem to be coming along. They seem to be getting it together. They've started to play some
Yeah,
football rather than just throwing the ball around and not catching.
yeah. The Niners, they actually played the Bots last week, with the Bots coming up victorious. So I think those two teams are definitely close in terms of competition wise. Moody's put together a very good squad. He's got some guys that
Okay,
play in
so
CBL Retro that he's put on his team. He's got a few guys that have played within CFL before. Guy like Ruhel, who's been a 10-year veteran, on Moody's elite team. A guy that's been around for a long time. And then he's got a very talented quarterback in Shine. He's a little bit of an older guy, but he's got such good accuracy. And then he's got a mix of young guys. Qasim, who's played in CBL Retro. He's got my cousin Nabil actually. He took him away from me.
How'd you
But
let that happen?
he actually played with him, last year. So
Okay,
he said that he was intent on staying with him, which I respect. But Moody's got a very talented team. I think where they lack is on the defensive side of the football. If you see the game
okay,
tape from last week, they missed a lot of flags. But offensively, they're as good as anybody. They got the speed, they got the height, they got the athletic ability, and they got a quarterback that can really find his targets.
okay. I'm just not sure what the quarterback situation is because sometimes I see Sean throwing the ball, and then sometimes there's another quarterback back there. I saw Moody throwing the ball at some point.
Yeah,
What's going on over there?
yeah. So maybe just a little refresher on the rules. So in retro, the rule is if you go up by two scores, you have to change your quarterback. So there was a
Whoa,
situation. Yeah, so this kind of keeps the competition, keeps games competitive where you have to go to your second quarterback if you go up two touchdowns.
that is
I
news
think
to me, man.
it keeps the game interesting. It keeps the game exciting. Also, there is no rushing the quarterback. 5 second Mississippi dead ball. So I think it forces teams to make quick decisions, and I think it helps the competition, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, no, this is news to me. That's pretty interesting. I didn't even know that was a rule, but you know what? I see that the whole mission of this whole retro division is to keep games close, to keep football going, and to keep the games exciting all the way through. And you know what? I kind of like it. It's fun times.
Yeah, I think
Whoever whoever
retro
came
is
up with that,
definitely
kudos to
hitting their
them.
mission. Yeah, I think that was Moody and Fruit, but retro is really hitting their mission. The games have been a lot of fun, and I invite everyone to take a look, watch some of the games. I know they tend to happen a little bit later after the elite games, so stick around, watch a few games.
All right. All right. Talk to me about the bots. What's going
Yeah,
on?
so the bots are led by Syed. Me and Akib agreed to join him, play with him. We got a lot of guys that have never played in any football league, so it's been kind of patchwork. Things are starting to come together. I think every game has been within one score, and we finally kind of broke through. We beat the Niners. The team's finally finding some chemistry. We're gelling. I think we do have some athletes, and Syed, he's been a veteran, he's played a long time, hasn't really done a lot of quarterback within the elite division, but he's sort of finding his groove. He just knows where to find some of his guys, and he's putting the ball in great spots right now.
When you say athletes, do you specifically are you specifically referring to your brother Akib?
Uh, uh,
He seems to be
he might, he might,
dominating. He seems to be
he might,
dominating.
he might, he might want that compliment, but if you look at the game tape, he was actually really good last week. Making some cuts in slow motion, dropping a few guys, and he did perform really well.
Listen, I
I
know
think
he's
he'll be
got the QB's trust. So I did have the honor of playing against you guys um, in one of the games, and Sayed, your quarterback, is kind of locked in with Akib and getting him the ball, and he's finding him in space enough to, keep the chains moving and score some touchdowns. So kudos to you guys for building that quick early team chemistry to score touchdowns. Um, but yeah, I think, you know, between these two teams, I think it's the competition is very close. I think you guys are going to have fun. But can the quarterback play from behind, and can he keep up with a guy like Shaq? And, can he keep up with the guy like Ezra? I'm not really sure yet. So I understand that they are where they are right now in the power rankings because I don't know if they can keep up with them. But we'll see. Anything can happen on any given Saturday in this case. And then let's talk about the team that's at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of this list, Iman. Actually
yeah.
turns out that they've got a nice group of guys that are willing to just play with each other despite the losses, which is a pretty difficult thing to do. And they seem to be keeping a positive attitude in, staying hanging in there for the season. So tell me what you know about about that team?
Yeah, I think it starts with Fake, who's brought in some good leadership. He's got his son Issa, and they've been playing together for a few years. They played with Iman, with the elite team, for a couple of years, and just a good group of brothers. They have a couple of other guys who are experienced, but I think the main question is who's throwing the ball. It seems like there's been a revolving door within the quarterback position. I know Omar played QB for a couple of weeks, and he's kind of intent on being a receiver now. So there's a little bit of a question mark on who's throwing the ball, but they do have a few good athletes. They have a couple of fast guys. They can definitely make plays, and defensively, they do have good mojo too. I think it's just taking a little bit longer to come together because there's an inconsistency at that most important position.
Actually, yeah, I happened to, they were missing a quarterback and they reached out in the group chat and they were like, someone willing to throw for us. And I had some free time and I signed up for it. I think they had a pretty decent group of guys that can actually go out and play some football. I don't know who their
Yeah,
quarterback is. Like you said, if they can find some consistency in that position, they got a pretty solid team.
yeah, I think they can definitely pull an upset. I wouldn't count them out at all.
All right, so if they give me a call to play quarterback for them again, you know, you approve? Do I need to?
I think it would be great.
All right.
I think it'd be great.
I'll see how it fits in my schedule and see if I get a call. I see they only have one win, and that was a good game actually. That was a good come from behind
That was a
win.
very good game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
West caught a pretty good, he ran a pretty good route on fourth down, I think, and we won that game. So that was a good upset. Good for them, but
definitely.
not so good for your team because your team ended up on the loss column that day. All right, yeah, fun stuff, man. Um, you know, upcoming schedule for this week for the retro division. What does it look like? We got Niners playing every other. Upset alert, right? Because if Niners can beat out every other, that'll be a pretty big deal because they're playing at 10, and then every other goes right into a double header, and they play the Interceptors. So they're going to be tired going into that game, and they'll be at a clear disadvantage playing the Interceptors that'll be fresh. Or they might be at an advantage because they might already be in rhythm and they might have momentum from the prior game. What do you think?
Yeah, you gotta remember that there are a bunch of young guys. That first game might just be a little bit of a tune-up for them. They got a very tough schedule. I mean, to be honest, playing the Niners after uh, off a loss, Coach Moody is probably let his guys hear it. He's not happy with the defensive effort. So I'm sure the Niners are going to be coming out very motivated, pumped up. They're going to try to throw the first gut punch. So I think every other they have a very good chance of losing their first game this week.
Let's see. Let's see how things unfold. All right, so they got the 11 o'clock, right? Every other versus Interceptors. Who else do we have in retro this week? That's it, those two games?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's just those two games. The bots have a bias, and Iman also has a bias. So there's just two retro games this week.
All right. So what do you think? Niners or every other? Who do you got?
I think every other is gonna lose to the Niners in the first game. That's my
Wow.
bold prediction.
Wow. Okay.
I think Moody's gonna have his guys fired up, and they're gonna put it on the line.
Wow. That's a pretty bold prediction right there, man. Okay. I'm all
I
for
do
it, man.
I
You know what? I'm all for the
I do
upsets. I'm all for the upsets. So it will be an upset if it happens because I think every other would be the clear favorites here. But Moody does seem to be surprising us with whatever he's putting together this year. Managing two teams at the same time, two different levels. You got guys showing up from all these different places sometimes it seems, but you know what? He's getting some wins, so good for him.
yeah
So,
yeah
we're rooting for you, Moody, and the Niners.
and I think attendance has not been an issue for him on the retro side. It's more on the elite side where he's struggled to field a consistent team.
Okay. All right. So the second game, every other versus Interceptors. What do you think is the outcome here? I guess we'll find out between our power rankings, right? Like head to head here, one and two going at it. So
Yeah,
we're gonna find out. But
I
we
think
did
this is a
but you
great.
did choose the Interceptors in the power rankings to be number one. So that does that mean that every other is going to be taking a loss here?
I think it's going to be a tough game, to be honest. Every other, they'll get their warm up in. If they lose that first game, they're going to be fired up. And the Interceptors, they're a tough team to beat, in my opinion. They have everything you need in retro. They have the size that makes it very hard to defend. Um, but it's tough to think that every other loses two games in one day. I don't see that happening. So I think they squeak by, late score, or maybe on the last drive to win it.
All right, you got it. So they're going 1-1 on the day. They're going to lose to the Niners, and according to you, they're going to pull out a win against the tougher team, which is the Interceptors. All right. Um, I'm going to go the other way, actually. I think they may have a higher chance of losing to the Interceptors, and I think they may have a much better chance at beating the Niners. Because I feel like they might go out and just hack early, and I don't know if the Niners are going to be able to claw back. So therefore, I am going to give them 1-1. Um, I know, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna keep it at 1-1. All right,
1-1, yeah. I think that's fair, to be honest.
all
Sorry.
right, all right. So let's uh let's move on, huh? Let's move on to our other division. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think
Or you got any last words for our retro guys before
mm,
we move on?
I think it's been a very competitive season, honestly. I I'm loving playing in retro. This is my first time. I think it's a very enjoyable league, and kudos to Moody and Farouk on bringing this vision to life.
All right, sounds good. So here we are. We're gonna move on from the retro power rankings and the schedule. We're gonna move on to our elite division, and we're first gonna talk about where things stand. We know we have 6 teams. We've got Jack and Company. We've got Moody's Niners. We've got Ken's, the U, AZ's, Caliphs, Limbs and Company with the Powerpuff Boys and the Ballers. So, how do you think, given given the wins and loss column and the standings, what surprises you the most about where things stand?
I think I'm a little surprised with how your ballers, are off to a tough start.
Are you coming right at me, huh?
Um, I
No,
would
you're not wasting
expect
any time on this. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
nothing against you. After the finals berth, I thought it'd be a little bit better of a start. I think this might motivate your guys to, fire back in the second half of the season. But I think that's my biggest surprise as of now. That's the way I see it.
I hear you, man. Listen, I didn't think we'd be 1-4 at this point because we definitely don't lack the talent. We've got a lot of guys that can play football at any level. So it's just a matter of us just figuring out a way to win. The one thing I can say is, we've had slow starts. Like we've eventually picked it up in our games. If you watch our games, if we don't score on the first 2 drives in this division, it's hard to come back because once a team is already up, that kind of changes how the game is being played. So, if you look at our scores, I think most of them have been very close towards the end. A lot of games haven't really gotten away from us. We just played a very good AK Powerpuff team that was not as close of a game. The score is a little bit closer, but they were ahead. We started clawing back. Um, we had a chance to bring it within one score, and the clock by that time it was against us, and we had to use all our timeouts. I mean, they dominated. They were up the entire game, and they didn't really give us a chance to make a full comeback. But you know, we hung in there with them, which is a good sign for my guys. Um, but I know that we want some wins. We can't continue losing because it's just not what we want to do. We have a really good roster. We want to take advantage of it. But the focus now for us is, listen, we're not going to chase the number one spot. Powerpuff Boys already at 5-0 with the 3 games remaining. We're just trying to right the ship in terms of how we play together and build some team chemistry and go into the playoffs and try to make a run. Would not obviously, I think, um, with one more win, the Powerpuff Boys would probably clinch. So if they play this week, I don't know who they're playing yet. We'll take a look at the schedule, but if they win this week, they've clinched number one. So yeah, a little bit of a disappointing season for us, but we'll get there. If you look at our points scored versus points against, the differential is like 4 points. Like we're losing by one score if you look at the averages. So we got to get one stop on defense or one additional stop on defense or score one more touchdown, and things might look very different on that win column for us. But yeah, I hear you. Surprised. I'm surprised too. The most surprising loss we had actually this year was to Pluto. I did not think that we were going to lose that game, but these guys, they're fiery. A lot of credit goes
Yeah,
out to
and I think that's the game they added. I think they added a couple guys, Isan and Jordan, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
Um, I think Shaq has done a good job of adding some veterans around the young guys, and that'll help them. In my opinion, I do agree with a lot of things you were saying about the Ballers. You guys have a good, talented team. You've started slow in a lot of these games. You've had to come back, and I think that's kind of limited your win potential. Because if you don't score four, maybe five touchdowns a game, it's hard to win in this league. And when you start off slow, it's really hard to come back against the teams that are just really strong.
Yeah, I think like on average you might get the ball like 5 times, right? Like in this six if you're lucky, but like I think you on average get the ball 5 times. And you know, you're if you're if you got two turnovers out of those 5 times, your chance to score is only three. That means you're only putting up 21 points at best. You got to do better than that, right? So you got to have at least
Yeah,
4 touchdowns, in my opinion, if you want to try to win the game. Unless you've got lockdown defense, and the issue on for us, I don't want to spend too much time on the Ballers because there's a lot of other good teams that have been playing, and I want to talk about them. But to close out with the Ballers, we've had we've had I have a system where guys need to be familiar with the defense that we play, and it has a lot to do with alignments and positioning. So some of the guys that are just starting to play with us, by the time we figure it out, which is in the second half, it's already too late. So on the defensive end, we've kind of got to do a better job at giving more opportunities to our offense. So we got to get some turnovers. We got to get the ball back for them and not just have them score on us. And that's what Shaq did, right? Shaq came out and blown coverages and he took advantage. And they went out and they scored fast. And they basically stunned our guys that were playing safety back there. I think it was our guy's first week playing safety. And he's played with us in other, um, not leagues, but he's played pickup football with us before. And his comment was that he was pretty surprised at like the game pace and how fast things happen in the league versus like when you're just playing pickup. So they got us on that one, man. And you know, they definitely were getting on me from the sideline too. We got things got we had a little back and forth, but at the end of the day, they won the game and kudos to them and a lot of respect for those guys for playing their heart out. So yeah, no hard feelings, you know, but it was a good game. You guys deserve that win.
yeah, and let's get into a couple of the other teams. I think we
Yeah.
mentioned the Powerpuff Boys. They're just an elite team right now. I don't think there's anyone that's at their level. They're just an well-oiled machine, but they've played a lot of close
Why
games too.
not? Why
Don't get
not,
me
man?
wrong.
I think they're beatable. I think Caliphs can
Uh,
beat
yeah,
can beat them. I think the U can beat them.
yeah. I'm
Um,
not. I'm not saying they're unbeatable. I'm just saying that I think at this moment they're in their own tier. They're just crisp. They know how to play together. There's no like there's no arguments. The team looks under control, and that says a lot about the team and their organization too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're 5-0. You're definitely in a class by yourself. The next best team has at least two more losses than you do. So there's absolutely no denial who the number one team is on the power rankings. So,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure that they will probably keep that number one spot going into the playoffs. So I don't know what the advantages are going to be for the number one seed, but it's going to be tough to shake them off of that one, especially given
Yeah,
that there's only 3 games left. But let's talk about the next few best teams because in my opinion, it's just the U, the Caliphs. I want to throw the Ballers in there, but I'm not going to because we're 1-4. But at least the Caliphs and the U are neck and neck in my opinion. And I think these two teams are also very capable of giving Powerpuff Boys a run for their money on any given day.
yeah, and I think it comes down to attendance. So the Caliphs, they're the defending champions. They brought in a lot of new guys. AZ has done a good job of recruiting, building together this team. But it seems like one week they have one guy, the next week they have another guy. Is there a consistent roster? I think that's the question. Who's leading the team at quarterback? Is it Danny? Is it Mark? Is it someone else? Like, there's some question marks in terms of the guys that are going to be available. But
Yep.
I think in terms of the talent, they're, in my opinion, they're definitely the second best team. For the U, it's a team led by Ken. It's an expansion team, like Ken says, and I think they're doing a
You
lot of good
think the
things.
Caliphs have more talent than the U?
I think the Caliphs, from what I've seen, have more talent than the U.
Who's their
Um,
quarterback? Let's talk about it. Who's
yeah,
who's the Caliphs quarterback? It's Danny, right?
yeah. I think it's Danny. There's been
Okay.
weeks where it's been
All right.
Mark.
Assume it's Danny. And the way Dre has been playing, so for quarterback comparison, team for team, do you take Danny or do you take Dre?
Uh, I mean, I'm obviously gonna take Dre, in that situation, but I think it's the roster around the guys. Like,
All right.
it,
So all right, let's break it down, right? So if you take the quarterback position being one of the most important positions for a game, you're gonna take Dre, right?
yes,
All
yes.
right. Now, what else do the Caliphs have that can edge out the U? Because I'll tell you this, I think Will is exceptional. I think he's got tremendous speed and a really high IQ of playing the game. So he's definitely a difference maker on the Caliphs, right? Which he has an edge. Outside of that, convince me how the roster is better than the U. And the
I
U
think,
has DJ. So you know what? The U has DJ. So I think Will and DJ kind of wash out.
yeah, but I think DJ just hasn't been available. I
Assuming
think he's
assuming assuming this is a
yeah.
playoff game and everyone is there, right? We're
Yeah,
talking about yeah.
if everyone's there, I think it might be a different story. But don't get me wrong, the Caliphs have guys that are very experienced football players. We got ZQ who's won a couple of
I mean, you
championships.
can't tell me more experience than Ken, right? Because if you're
Oh
going to
no,
talk
and
experience,
yeah,
then Ken wins that one out too. So now you're
yeah,
talking. Now you're talking. Look, the way Dre's been playing. So the reason why I'm saying all this is because I understand that AZ's done a very good job with this roster, and they have a lot of talent, right? Like Safwan alone is like a very good defender, and he is a big time difference maker. They got Q on the team. They've got a lot of guys that can play football, no doubt about it. But I think the U has probably an edge on them because I think the U has height, speed, a little bit of a edge on at quarterback, and you have the leadership and experience from Ken. So, in my humble opinion, I'm going to go ahead and say that the U should probably be at number two and not at number three. Now, I'm not considering the record. I don't know head to head who won, who lost, but just looking at power rankings and how I see things playing out, I think the U should probably be in that number two spot, and the Caliphs should probably be in the number three spot. And if you look at the points for the Caliphs, they're trailing the U. The U's been putting up a little bit more points than the Caliphs, and the Caliphs points against is a little bit better than the U, and that's because the ball has put up 0 points in week one, so that just skews the average um, there. But yeah, I think out of the 5 games that they've played, I think the U definitely has shown a lot of improvement and consistent playing,
Yeah,
where the
I
Caliphs has been a little bit of an up and down. Who are the two teams that they lost to?
the Caliphs, they lost to Powerpuff Boys. I know that. I'm not sure who else they lost to, but I will say that the U, I do think they're under the radar a little bit. They are very good. I just think the Caliphs are, as of today, are a little bit better. But let's get into the last three teams. In
All
my
right.
opinion, we got the Niners, we got Pluto.
We already talked about Pluto. We know Shaq. We know they got a couple of new guys. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know the guy's name. Slips my mind right now, but he seems to be Shaq's number one wide receiver. Um,
are you talking about Tauheed or RC?
I don't remember who it is. But he's a younger kid. When in the game against us, he was wearing like that. What do you call that thing?
The ski mask.
The
Oh,
ski mask.
you're talking about RC. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a very talented player. He's been on the Ravens in the past.
yeah, yeah.
He
That
went to
kid.
the final. He went to the finals with the Ravens before, so he's a very talented player. And Shaq, I think, has done a good job of building a team.
Yeah.
And he's added a couple of veterans. Isan, and Jordan, and I think they're up there in competition for that fourth best team with Moody and the Niners. I think Moody's problem for a few years has been who's going to show up and how interested they are in playing. It's just been there's been a lot of weeks where he just hasn't gotten all his guys to show up, and it's negatively affecting their team. A couple of weeks where they did get the guys to show up, they won, so they just beat the U. Last week they beat Pluto in week one. Can they get the guys to show up? I think that's the big question mark.
All right. So, what do you think about the power rankings? Like you've already told me how you feel about one and two, right? You think Powerpuff obviously belong there. Calypso, you want at number two.
Yeah.
What about the
Yeah,
rest?
I'd put the U close third. I think they have a competitive team, and
Okay.
then the Niners are there. Are they better? I'm not sure. It just really depends on attendance. That's been their biggest problem, and
All right,
that
we
kind of
we
hurts
can't
them.
make the excuse of attendance for them. Now we're
Yeah.
talking
So
going into the playoffs. If the guys show up, they show up. If they don't show up, they don't show up. That's no one else's problem, right? But
yeah,
but given the team, the build of the team, and I think I saw Nafi go out and actually run some routes, which is a positive sign. And shout out to him for, showing up to the games even when he hasn't been playing. So it
yeah,
looks like he'll be eligible. Looks like he'll be a threat in the playoffs. Looks like he will be a key tool for them to use. Although his speed looked a little slow to me, looked a little rusty, but it is what it is. But yeah,
yeah,
personally, I don't think the Niners have what it takes to make a deep run this year,
yeah. I
and
think it
it
remains to
probably
be
starts with
seen. Yeah,
commitment.
I think it remains to be seen with the roster, but Moody has had gone through a lot of heartbreak with his team. I guess we'll see where things land. But then we look at the Ballers, we kind of talked about them, in Pluto. I think those teams are neck and neck, and in the Elite Division, every team has a chance to be dangerous. So I wouldn't sleep on any of these teams.
So, all right, I'm okay with the power rankings the way they are. I'll probably just move the U up a little bit. With the Caliphs at number three. Um, Niners being all the way up there, nah. Niners, by the time the season is done, they're going to be at the bottom of the list. They're going to be number six, in my opinion. Um, Pluto, I also think Pluto's going to be at five, and I think we're going to take the Niners spot at number four. Um, that's where I see the season shaking out. So that's my change and my take on the power rankings. But let's get into the matchups, unless you want to dive in a little bit more on the power rankings, or whether you disagree with me.
I would put the Niners as four, the Ballers as five, and Pluto as six. But
Okay,
I think this order can shake up any which way. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, listen, the way the games have gone, I think it's becoming where there's no any team has the capability of winning on that day. So I don't think the disparity in this division is huge. Um,
yeah,
I do think it's showing the developing teams, it's showing the consistent teams, and it's showing the teams that are dropping off. but it's not like teams are winning 50-7. No one's getting blown
Yeah,
out here. So it's a good
there's a
thing.
lot of competitive games, so I think that's great for the league.
All right, so let's dive into this 8 a.m. game tomorrow morning. Um, the U versus the Ballers. The Ballers and the U played once already this season, and I think going into halftime, it was like 6-6. Um, Low scoring game overall. I think it came down to the last couple of minutes on this one, and the U pulled out the W. Um, Umar threw like four interceptions in that game. He's been an interception machine, although he's gotten better over the last two games. But we were right there with them, and we're looking to snatch this W from them tomorrow morning. What do you think?
Going into that, why do you think he's kind of regressed? Like he had an MVP type of season. Now this year, it looks like he's making a lot of mistakes. What's been the issues?
I don't, I can't pinpoint it because I'm trying to have less involvement in the offense because I've kind of built this reputation of on-field reputation of um, having a lot to say and kind of getting in the minds of my own, in the heads of my own team because I get a little hyped.
Yeah,
But I've been doing my best to kind of let him play it out and figure it out in terms of decision making. In previous years, I kind of been the play caller for him on offense and setting up, we're what kind of offense we're going to run. This go around, I've kind of not even I've tried my best to stay off of the field when the offense is on because I want him and the team wants him to take control of the huddle, call the plays. So I think he's a little bit overwhelmed. We have a lot of new guys this year too. And Umair, if you know him, he wants to make sure that everyone gets the ball. I think he's
right.
more focused on like getting like everyone involved in the game versus just taking advantage of what the defense is giving him and just going out and scoring touchdowns. That's why I
Yeah,
think like Shu needs to come in and kind of give him some, balance where like, hey, look, I know you want to get the guys involved because he wants to respect everyone's time that they came out and they're playing and they're on the sideline and he wants to get everybody in. But listen, my thing is something is working. You don't need to change it. Go out there,
yeah,
score touchdowns, win the game, go up by a couple of points, and then we'll figure out the rest. Who knows? I might even
yeah.
go in and throw a ball on.
I think that's where you come in as a leader and you step in, and what's worked for you guys is you've been in the huddle, helped Omer out, guided him through, maybe calmed him down and make sure that he's making the right reads, making the right plays. Football's a game, where sometimes people get upset when they don't get the ball, but if you want to win football games, you gotta make the best plays, find your best guys, and at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Everyone's gonna get the ball at some point, but I think you gotta step in that leadership role and kind of be that play caller for him, and get him back to his old self.
I hear you, man. I think one of our guys, I think James said this. Um, you know, the remedy is you want to make people happy, get W's, get the
Yep.
wins, and you'll see smiles on
Everyone's
everybody's faces. So
everyone's happy when you win. So I mean, look, I think the U is a very talented team, but the Ballers, in my opinion, they got to be fired up. Taking a lot of criticism from everyone around the league. I'm sure you've been heated at them for this early season struggle. I could see the Ballers pulling an upset tomorrow just because uh, I think that bad luck runs out. You guys start quick, and put down your foot.
those are some heartwarming words coming from you. And you know what? Hopefully we get to see that on the field tomorrow morning. Um, Dre won't be too happy about that, but you know what? It'll be a nice it'll be a nice win for us to kind of get some momentum going. So let's get into the next game, the U versus the Niners. And actually, so the Niners pulled out a win against the U last week, right?
Yeah.
But are you on the Niners as well?
Yeah, so I've been on the Niners. I haven't gotten to play too much. Most of the times I've had games on Retro and Elite Division. So I've played, I think, like two halves and one full game. So for me to pick this game is a little bit tough. I'll let you pick this one.
Well, listen,
But
like automatically I want to go with like the U, right? But this is a rematch from last week. What happened last week? How did the Niners pull this one out?
yeah, I think a lot of the regular Niner guys showed up, and Esteban was leading the charge, and I think he's just comfortable. He's confident, and he just delivers.
So it was an outright fight and they just won it? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. I think it came down to really the last couple plays.
Oh wow. So I think I saw in the chat, Dre or Ken may have been saying that they were short a couple of guys. And listen, to me, there's no excuse for attendance. Like I don't, that's inexcusable. So you can't use that one, right? So, but I did hear them say that they were short a couple of guys, but it's up to them to get a whole team there. And the loss is a loss, man. Even if you had five guys, you had five of your own guys. Should have won that game. And Niners pulling this out is actually very impressive, and it's commendable that they went out and they the form that Dre is playing in, they went out and they beat that team. So props to Moody and Esteban and Josh and Dwayne and all the guys from that team. If I missed, I know Matt's on that team too. So like all you guys, good stuff, man. Like that's a pretty big win. And if you pull this one out again, that's a big upset. That's a big
Yeah,
upset in
and
my opinion.
it's a season building win. It's one of
Yeah.
those wins that gets the guys hyped up and ready to continue performing.
Listen, like statistically, I'd pick the U, but I don't really care about the statistics here. I think I'm going to go with the Niners because if they pull this win out, it's just it goes to show how much heart they have, and and now that they're building this chemistry going forward. Although I said that they were going to drop down in the power rankings, but they have you know the capacity to go out and win this game, building momentum off of last week. I know Ken is not going to go out there and bring five guys again. I know he's not okay with taking losses. So I do expect them to rebuild and kind of come out firing. But hey, Niners, big time underdog in my opinion going into this game. But if you guys pull this W out, I'm going to be very happy for you. So hopefully you pull this one out. Sorry, Dre. You guys are good. I'll pick you maybe on the next guy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game again.
All right. So what else we got?
I think the
I
last
think,
game we got the Caliphs and the Pluto.
ooh, okay. These games are good, man. I don't know if I'll get a chance. I definitely won't have a chance to stick around for that game. It's a very late game. Um, but I wish I could stay around and watch that game. I kind of enjoy watching Pluto, because they kind of, I want to say, a little bit unorthodox. They're not as structured and uniformed as some of the other teams, but they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they play a little bit of a backyard football style,
Yeah.
and they're just out there having fun, playing the game. Sometimes they get intense, but I just see this one a little bit one-sided. Caliphs, they're an experienced bunch. Pluto, just maybe they're a week or two away, I think, still from competing against a team like the Caliphs. So I give the Caliphs this one, by maybe two touchdowns.
All right. Well, Farouk sent me $20 to pick Pluto to lose, so I have to honor the. So I got to go with Caliphs simply for that reason. Blame Farouk for this one. But yeah, Farouk made sure that I don't pick Pluto to win here. So sorry, Pluto. You're going to take this L. And based on this write-up that we saw today, you're only scoring garbage time points, and Callus is going to put a 50 burger on you. So I didn't write that. I'm just delivering the message. Don't come at me on the field. All right. So I think that's pretty much it. I think we can wrap it up. What do you say? We're coming up on an hour, man. This is long. We usually cut this off in like 30 minutes.
It's been a great talk. I think we just dived in really deep into the details and good analysis on the teams, the way they've been playing. And since we're at the halfway mark, we kind of measured how every team looks. And I think it's a great landscape. The retro
Yeah, yeah.
division is
It's
very
it's
competitive.
the league
Elite
in
division,
itself is coming along well.
yeah,
Hopefully we can keep it consistent. We can keep it going. and we can keep the guys engaged. And I'm looking forward to the playoffs, man. It should be a good two weekends.
Yeah, there's nothing really like CFL Super Saturday. Every team's just fighting to make the finals, and it's a whole lot of fun. So
We got to
I'm
get some
looking forward to it.
clarity. I guess we got to get some clarity on what the seeding is going to be like, and we can start looking at who's going to play, what seed is going to line up in week one. Do you know anything about that right now? Do you know how it's done?
I, I think that might be for next week's podcast with the
All right.
commissioner himself.
All right, let's do that. Yeah. So we'll next week we'll talk about the playoff picture, what it looks like after this week, and then what the seeding's going to be in Super Saturday, what that is, where it's going to be played. Maybe we can disclose the location, maybe. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to, and catch you guys soon. Catch you on the field, and Pluto, good luck. Um, and ball is, let's get it tomorrow.
All right, thank you for having me, Usman.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
Take care.